before we ask Matt to come up, I want to ask you to take a moment just to switch gears. We thought it would be nice to have a video that helps you switch your mental framework a little bit from what we've been doing in this part of the morning to what we're doing now. So let's roll the video and see what we have.
Marty! You've got to come back with me!
Where?
Back to the future!
I'm a huge Back to the Future fan.
Doc?
I need fuel!
Especially all that crazy technology. That's why I got into science and ended up getting my master's in aeromechanical engineering. I'm Misha, by the way, and I'm thrilled Toyota has picked me to meet my two heroes and show them an amazing piece of technology that might just inspire them, just like they inspired all of us.
Hoverboards.
We haven't gotten there yet, but we've got 3D movies.
We got fingerprint technology.
And those self-tying sneakers.
I'm waiting for those. Can you believe we thought fax machines used to be around?
Yeah, I got a fax machine.
Who do you fax?
Oh, I fax my agent, I fax...
He's got a fax machine? Time to rethink your representation.
Well, I'll fax you.
Hey, I'm faxing you. I'll get back to you. This might be him. Hi, guys. I'm Misha. Michael.
So you're like a real Doc Brown, huh?
I wouldn't go that far, but I'm a scientist, yeah. So, October 21st, 2015. Can you believe this day's nearly arrived?
What's the big deal? You invent a pizza hydrator or something?
Flying cars? Hoverboard? Trash compacting robot.
Almost. You remember the Mr. Fusion from the DeLorean?
So that's why you had me bring this trash.
So you're going to turn that into energy?
Precisely. I'm going to show you how you could turn your trash into fuel for a car. But I'm going to need a lot more than this. I'll see you on the 21st.
Later, Misha.
I liked him.
Got a pep in his step. Nice ride.
Thank you.
Who was that?
Some film crew that paid for our trash.
Didn't have time to paint it or build it to scale, I see.
That is the Toyota Mirai. It's a fuel cell car. It's powered by hydrogen, which in its monatomic form...
Misha, English.
Sorry. Let's start at the beginning. So when I last left you guys, I went on a little trash collection journey. You might recognize some of these locations. The end of the journey was at the landfill, where all the trash gets placed, decomposes, and produces an enormous amount of biogas. A special facility then receives the purified gas, combined with natural gas from the grid, where it all gets processed into hydrogen.
Hydrogen? Are you telling me this sucker's nuclear?
No, this sucker's electrical. All that hydrogen is piped or transported into a fuel station, where we can then fuel our vehicle. A vehicle which, if my calculations are correct, should be arriving right about now. Give me a minute.
It works, right?
You bet your ass it works.
So you gonna take us for a spin or what?
Hop on in.
Shotgun.
What do you say we get this baby up to 88?
Just drive.
Come on, Chris, give us a great Scott.
Great Scott.
morning. Can everyone hear me? All right, well, good morning. It's great to be here. Thank you very much, Gordon, for the intro. You know, I'm an engineer, and typically they don't let engineers, especially myself, out of the lab to talk to people. And it's probably, we'll find out later if that was a good idea or not. I'll try not to stare out the window at this lovely view and the lovely building that we're in. This video that you saw here, as much as I like Back to the Future, I will admit, probably pushes the boundaries of artistic license for this technology, but at least I hope you enjoyed it. Can we go to the next slide? Thank you. Okay, so yesterday we made deliveries to the first customers of the Toyota Mirai fuel cell vehicle, and this happened in Southern California. This was a big moment for us, and this comes after a long culmination of technology development that I'll go in with you, try to share with you as we go forward into this presentation. Hopefully you're able to see the slides, and I'll try to speak clearly. This vehicle marks a turning point, and that's more than a marketing slogan. What this really means is that this is a transition, and the next step, major step, in vehicle electrification, and really it's a story for how we go forward in our society with mobility. So we announced late last year that we're going to be delivering 3,000 vehicles in the U.S. by the end of 2017, and that started yesterday. Now, this number of vehicles may not sound like a lot, but you know, after 20 years of development, this is a major step in a very new technology for us. This vehicle has a range of just over 300 miles, and you can refuel it in about 3 to 5 minutes. And what that means for us, in addition to that, you also have access to carpool lanes where that's available in the state of California, which is the launch state at this point in time. We're planning next year to be launching in the Northeast states. So if they have carpool lanes there and they have that kind of a program, we're very interested to have that for our customers as well. But the reason we're doing this started a while back, which is having the challenge to take cars out of the emissions equations for society. That was at the same time of the ZEV program, or the Zero Emission Vehicle Program, or the Zero Emission Vehicle Mandate, which started right here in California in the state capital, Sacramento, but was an instrumental moment towards societies all over the planet towards cleaner burning vehicles. But as you see in the media today and see in the news today, the big issue, just as important as pollution, is carbon. And last week, we made an announcement, well, I'll get to that in a second, but this start of pollution or emissions reduction started 20 years ago in the late 90s with a Toyota Prius. When I look at this, I look like, wow, this is a very old picture. But the fuel cell vehicle and the gas-electric hybrid, the Prius, were both started at the same point in time. So management at Toyota gave the challenge to the engineers, which technology will be the technology for the path forward for the future. And the answer at that point in time was both gas-electric and fuel cell vehicles, or fuel cell technology. They were both started at the same time, and only now are we ready to bring to market the fuel cell vehicle. But one of the key things about growing electrification is the hybridization of vehicles. Right now, we have many platforms that are hybrids, and hybrids are the core of our technology. They both cross electric motor development, battery development, power electronics. All these technologies had to be developed for an automotive application because they had to come down in size, come down in weight, and most importantly, come down in cost to allow us to put such a technology in a widespread number of platforms and to be able to grow the volume. And by growing the volume is how we are able to make an environmental impact in society. We just launched our latest vehicle. This is our 4th generation Prius. And the big thing about this is it's about cost and convenience. Only through having something that's affordable and having something that customers don't have to change their way of life and the way that they move through is something that you can have an adoption that goes to a mass market. You have a high volume, and then you can have a high impact towards carbon reduction, petroleum reduction, and pollution reduction. So last week, we made a huge announcement. We are committing a new challenge to make a 90% reduction in carbon from relative to 2010 by 2050. So a 90% reduction in carbon from 2010 we will make by 2050. Now, how are we going to do this? This map here, and I hope you can see it all right, has a kind of an image. It has a volume image of vehicle technologies with time. What this shows here is, if you can see conventional engines, conventional combustion, is that this starts to narrow down by 2050. And what we're saying is that hybridization is going to become more widespread and going to be used in more vehicle lines and more vehicle types, small vehicles, large vehicles, heavy-duty vehicles. And that hybridization concept, that approach, is going to be used in not only conventional gas-electric hybrids, but also a larger use of plug-in hybrids, and then transitioning further still towards fuel cell vehicles and battery electric vehicles. So if we look at fuel cell vehicles, the big question is where do we get the hydrogen from? Because really, this is no longer really a story about the car, it's a story about energy. Where do we get the energy to make this fuel that we're going to be able to move around in, no matter what type of vehicle it is, but be able to do it in a way that's sustainable for the planet? So here are a couple of options. So we have natural gas. We have biogas, as was discussed in the video just now. And then we have kind of more commonly understood renewables, such as wind and solar. Also, I don't want to forget geothermal. It's not on the page here, but it's there as well. So biogas, wind, and solar, these all are the definitions, these all meet the definitions of renewable energy. One of the other key things is that when we talk about wind and solar, we think of that as stored energy. And a lot of projects are going on in Europe. A lot of projects are starting in Japan, and then in other areas in Canada, where the focus is trying to take curtailed renewables. Basically, you have wind, you have geothermal, for example. These are sources of energy that have to get turned off at nighttime or turned off at past the demand that doesn't match the supply. Because the load, the grid, cannot take that energy. And so there's a tremendous opportunity of untapped resources through these curtailed renewables that we could then store that energy as hydrogen and then use that again. And you could use that hydrogen either as a reinjection into the natural gas network, or you could use that hydrogen as part of a whole nother network of energy, whether it's powering a building or powering vehicles. I want to talk a little bit about natural gas because in the area of fuel cell vehicles, it tends to kind of not have the best reputation, but I think a big part of that is just because of the information that's out there. Natural gas is one of the largest ways that we make hydrogen. So in the US today, there's over 11 million metric tons of hydrogen made today, and it's made, majority of it, by natural gas. 1/3 of that hydrogen made from natural gas is used for gasoline production. So every oil refinery that we have in the US, every oil refinery globally, uses hydrogen in the process to make gasoline. And so when we think of using natural gas to make hydrogen by itself for fuel cell vehicles, you can kind of think of it as you're taking away the hydrogen that was used to make gasoline, and instead you're using it in a cleaner process for not having combustion in a fuel cell vehicle. If you were to take all the hydrogen that is used in making gasoline, it would be equivalent of 30 million vehicles annually that you could power in this country. Just to give you some perspective of how much natural gas we use today just for cars. Well, it's also kind of close to home for us at Toyota. In Torrance, in Southern California, we have a hydrogen fueling station. It is the only station in North America that is powered from a pipeline of hydrogen. So we happen to be in the South Bay region of Los Angeles. And in that area, it's filled with refineries. There's an ExxonMobil refinery down the street. There's a Tesoro refinery down the other street. There are central plants that are in the area that are steam methane reformers that take natural gas from the grid. They make hydrogen. They put that into a pipeline network that runs throughout the South Bay of Los Angeles. That network then goes to oil refineries and is used in the production of gasoline. We happen to have an oil refinery down the street from our Toyota campus, and that pipeline runs right down the road. So we've tapped into that pipeline of hydrogen, and we're using that today to fuel a hydrogen fueling station. It's the largest demand fueling station in North America. We have 4 dispensers. It's used by all the major auto companies that have fuel cell programs, and it's always over capacity. So they actually can't make enough hydrogen at this one site, and so we're looking forward to the upgrade that's going to happen next year. I want to kind of end this part to try to give an example comparison here about carbon from a well-to-wheel perspective, because when we look at efficiency, carbon is typically used as the proxy for that. And as a comparison, and I hope that you're able to see this, I apologize for it being an eye chart. Conventional engines obviously give the highest amount of carbon per mile. That's in the top bar on the top, right? Gasoline hybrids come down to about 3/4 of that. Plug-in hybrids have an opportunity to reduce that further, and there's a range on that bar because it depends on where you get that electricity from. If you're getting that from the US grid mix, or you're getting that from the California grid mix, or 100% renewable. So it depends on where you get that energy. And then moving to fuel cell vehicles and battery electric vehicles. Well, the reason that those bars at the bottom are all shaded in the way they are with a gradient is because, again, it depends on where you get that energy. Natural gas is all the way over to the right, and very clearly we can see that even if you did 100% natural gas for a fuel cell vehicle, you're still almost half the carbon output of what you would be doing from a conventional vehicle with gasoline. However, in the state of California, there is a law, SB 1505, which requires that if you're going to use hydrogen from a hydrocarbon feedstock in a fuel cell vehicle, that hydrogen at that fueling station needs to be 1/3 renewable. So already at 1/3 renewable, we're cutting it down even further. And we would expect that this kind of reduction of the carbon content, even for hydrogen fuel, is going to continue in other states and other regions globally. When we compare this to our electric grid, this is kind of similar. So the California grid mix is on par or on order of about that 1/3 renewable requirement for natural gas to hydrogen. Both of these, or all of these 4 technologies are all low carbon pathways. And these are all part of that mix towards that ultimate goal of this 90% reduction in carbon by 2050. But of course, we all know that battery electric vehicles can be charged by complete renewables 100%, but what I want to make sure that you're very clear on is that we can also do the same thing for fuel cell vehicles. It just depends on how you make that energy. Both of them can be renewable, 100% renewable, if that system is put into place. So let me switch gears a little bit. Let me tell you why we believe in fuel cells. Well, we also believe in battery electric vehicles. They both have a place in the portfolio for future mobility. This chart is on the vertical axis is system cost. It's also, you can think of it as system weight and system volume. It's a very big aspect when you're designing a vehicle. And the horizontal axis is cruising range. So with a battery electric vehicle, you have an increase in cost, an increase in weight, and an increase in volume when you put more batteries, more energy storage into that vehicle. And it becomes a bit of an exponential curve as you want to have more driving range. However, with a fuel cell vehicle, you're not putting more power in a vehicle when you go to a larger driving range. You're just putting in more hydrogen. You can store more energy in hydrogen than you can with batteries. And that's the fundamental aspect. Batteries are not at that point in time where we can say that they can drop in with the same amount of energy storage as a hydrogen car. So where we really see places for batteries right now in battery electric vehicles is for shorter range, urban environments that are going to be suitable for the customer at that price point. But the key thing right now is that technology development still needs to occur, And where we see the next technologies in batteries is that it's going to allow us to bring the cost down and have it become a widespread within that market range to become more of a profitable vehicle option. Toyota is the largest producer of automotive batteries on the planet. We have a partnership with Panasonic. We have other partnerships with other companies. We do a tremendous amount of research in the lab. We have something called the Sakichi battery target. The Sakichi battery is a hypothetical target of a battery that would have the energy density of gasoline. But we are multiple generations away from ever getting to that point. We are so small right now with where we're at with lithium-ion technology, and then the next technologies that are beyond that are coming. It's still a smaller amount of energy than what you would need to have a drop-in vehicle that would replace a gasoline vehicle and give you that driving range, give you that durability, give you that cold start and hot start capability for the life of the car. So a little bit more about infrastructure or about hydrogen is that the only way that fuel cell vehicles are going to grow and become a mass market environmental impact is to be able to solve the infrastructure issue or the refueling station issue. Multiple locations globally are currently active in putting in infrastructure. One of the largest areas in Germany. Germany has a hydrogen mobility project, which currently has a near-term plan of 500 stations, and they have another plan after that goal about 1,000 stations. There's a multi-partner consortium that is putting in stations in Germany. There's now new activities in the UK and Scandinavia. There's a large program in Japan, and you'll be seeing more information from Toyota as we talk about the 2020 Olympics and the hydrogen network that we're putting in there. But in addition to that, there's also activities that are going on in Australia. There's activities that are starting in China and also some activities in Hawaii. Vancouver, I don't want to leave you guys out. And then the next step here in the US is California. California is the largest concentration of hydrogen stations at this point in time and planned into the future, with the Northeast states following that. And I'll talk about that in just a second. So here in California has a very aggressive approach towards providing support for alternative mobility programs. Currently, there's a 100-station funding activity from the state of California for $200 million for 100 stations by around the 2024 timeframe. This would be able to support 25,000 vehicles, and we feel that this would be really possibly another tipping point for an engaging industry to then basically take it the next step of the way. We see this 100-station goal as being able to lay the seed network of stations in cluster areas, in connector areas, and destinations to be able to start this process towards a larger rollout of fuel cell vehicles. And this is provided by the state of California with great leadership from the Air Resources Board and from the California Energy Commission to make this happen. There's going to be over 14 stations in the San Francisco Bay Area alone. The next station closest to us is down the street in Emeryville. The next station across the bay is going to be in Mill Valley and South San Francisco, closest to us. And there's more stations that are planned in the city of San Francisco in the coming years. In addition to that, Toyota has taken a step to accelerate this development. We are working with Air Liquide and First Element to build out additional stations in the state of California, and in the Northeast states be able to put in stations, 12 stations that are planned for the 5 Northeast states. And as one example, this is one of the most recent stations that was just built in the city of West Sacramento. For this year, we're expecting about 10 stations by the end of this year, and 40 stations by the end of next year as part of this rollout. The other announcement we also made last week is that we're doubling down on our commitment to the volume of fuel cell vehicles. We just announced that we're going to have a plan of 30,000 vehicles starting in the 2020 timeframe. This will be our next generation fuel cell vehicle, and this is a global target that we've announced last week. In addition to that, we don't talk about it very much, but we're also on our 4th generation fuel cell bus. This bus is only being used in Japan at this point in time, and first deliveries of this 4th generation are going to be starting next year. It's part of a program to develop more than 100 buses for the Tokyo Olympics. But what this shows is that fuel cell vehicles don't need to be in just light-duty vehicle powertrains. These powertrains can be scaled up to be in medium-duty and heavy-duty applications as well. They can be in large ships as well. It just depends on the type of fuel cell technology. And then in addition to that, we're also expanding and scaling fuel cells for other applications, which includes forklifts for commercial and industrial, as well as household fuel cell systems that may run on hydrogen or may run on natural gas. So if I take a moment here to pause, I want to close with you is that this turning point is really a transition in our energy society. So more than 100 years ago, we burned wood, made steam for power, right? Or for locomotives, right? And then in the 1800s, we transitioned to oil after another period of using coal, right? So we think that at this point in time, we're now in the transition towards a hydrogen-based society where hydrogen, working with renewables and working with other low-carbon fuels together is going to make an integrated, interdependent network to allow us to have both battery electric vehicles and fuel cell vehicles, as well as plug-in hybrids and hybrids in the near term. So with that, I'll stop there.
A couple of questions that may be on your mind, and then after the questions, we'll roll one more video. But let's take a moment. Can you just get yourself up to the microphone, introduce yourself? It's right behind you. Microphone, right? Well, it's for the benefit of the webcast audience. So we've got a lot of people who are watching that want to hear you.
Evan Reeves with Center for Creative Land Recycling. Just wondering if you could speak to the safety of hydrogen fuel cells.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. You notice I didn't have any slides there. I would say hopefully that's a message in itself because safety comes first, right? We can't do any of this without safety. Fuel cell vehicles, we think, are as safe as gasoline vehicles or safer. Okay, so the hydrogen that's in the fuel cell vehicle that's in the tanks is at 10,000 psi, but I would say that that's not a problem. Commercial pressures for such storage systems actually go much higher. So for this vehicle, we've developed, as part of an industry standard, a global standard for safety for those tanks. Those tanks are stronger than the vehicle. One of the stories I'd like to share with you is that one of the things that we have to do, it's a standardized part of testings, is that we have to shoot a bullet through the tank. We have to show that the tank doesn't rupture. When we were at the earlier version of the design of the fuel cell vehicle, we had tanks that were 5,000 psi. And the standard rifle round that we would use to penetrate that tank was a 30-06. When we went to 10,000 psi, 30-06 rounds would just bounce off the tank. Right? We had to go to a 50 caliber before we could actually penetrate the tank in order to pass the test, because what you have to show is that you put a hole in the tank and it doesn't rupture. These tanks have been all sorts of destructive tests to make sure that they don't cause a problem in an accident. So the analogy I would use is that the tanks are kind of like rocks, and the vehicle frame, right, the energy absorbing part in the front and the back, that's kind of like a soda can. So rocks in a soda can don't really get bothered when you crush the soda can. So they just get displaced. They're designed to be in a fire. They would vent within a few minutes if they got hot, because there's a special sensor that's passive that opens up and vents down that hydrogen. If you put the car into a fire, or the tank into a fire, it doesn't cause the rest of the car to go engulfed in flames like gasoline does. So it just vents down the tank and the car doesn't actually burn. So we're very confident about the safety of this vehicle. Internally, I'm very confident. It's not something that we would bring to market unless we are ready. Okay.
Last question. All right, Greg, you're up. Greg Delane from Urban Innovation Exchange.
UX Global, to be clear. Yeah, I was just wondering about the actual fueling when you're at the station. I know there was an issue with just sort of the temperature and the nozzle and the connection to the car. How does that actually work?
Yeah, so fueling, to fuel quickly, to make it similar to a gasoline experience, which is about 3 to 5 minutes, is that you have to cool the hydrogen. So basically a station is a storage container of high pressure hydrogen and a refrigeration system, and basically a dispenser with a nozzle. And so when you dispense it into the car, the hydrogen gets cooled or chilled to about minus 40 degrees Celsius, still a gas, goes into the car as a gas, but you're able to put it into the car quickly. And one of the things that happens is that if it's humid outside, you get kind of frost or ice formation on the outside of that nozzle. It kind of tells you that that's working. But it's a very simple process, and from the folks that we've talked to, this vehicle is our actual first retail version of the car, but this is actually our 5th generation of the car. We've actually had this in consumer hands. We had 100 of these cars in Highlander platform for several years, since 2007, and all those customers were very excited and happy with the car. When we took it back, they basically said, they were complaining because they did not want us to take their vehicle. The only thing that they would say is that they wanted more stations. And if you touch it, it's just cold. But it's not cold like it's going to burn your hands. So, did that answer your question? Okay, all right.
Now Greg and others wish that they had actually paid attention during chemistry in high school.
That's right. So I want to queue up the next video.
Yes,
the next video is going to be kind of similar to this video, but I will mention, though, that it was directed by a documentary filmmaker, Morgan Spurlock. So there's a bit of more edge to this film, which I hope you enjoy. Okay, thank you.
Get to watch it.
Hydrogen is the most abundant element in the universe. It's in almost everything, from water to trees to grass. That's what makes hydrogen such an exciting fuel. But the critics have been vocal. Some have even gone so far as to call bullshit. And they're right, but not in the way they think. I'm an engineer, and these are cows. And all of this manure has hydrogen in it. Let's see if we can use that hydrogen to get a car to really run on bullshit. Let's go. So I'm on my way to meet Ron. He's a dairy farmer. He's got a beautiful little family-run dairy and lots of manure, and that's just what I'm looking for. Wow, Ron, look at this.
Yeah, this is the stuff.
So what do you see when you see these piles?
Manure.
When I look at these piles, I see an enormous amount of energy, and I was hoping we could run a little experiment with your help.
Right.
I'd like to see if we can take manure, strip the hydrogen out of it, and use that hydrogen to power our car.
That sounds crazy, but let's do it.
All right, Ron, thank you so much. I'll bring you back for the good part.
Look forward to it.
All right. So now that we have our truckload of manure, we're on our way to the digester, which is basically a big poo lagoon that breaks down our manure and releases some lovely smelling raw biogas. Then we're collecting some purified gas off the other end and taking it to a steam methane reformer. This is where the real magic happens. Using steam and heat, we can strip out the hydrogen, which should then be able to power our vehicle. A moment of truth. Want to drive?
I would.
All right.
Well, it started.
Well, I told you it could be done, and here we are.
This is great.
It's great, huh? Did you ever think we'd be sitting here, driving a car on that Commodore?
It seemed like a stretch.
No combustion engine in this car. The hydrogen and the oxygen from the air come together in that fuel cell, and it makes DC electricity.
That's incredible.
And it doesn't even smell. But there's many other ways to get the hydrogen. We just demonstrated one with this process.
We're driving down the road, running on bullshit.